Hey guys, welcome to another little video after a long time. Very short one, just showing a little trick how to align an object to a curve with a custom up vector. So what we have here is a curve, one joint, and a locator. Okay, so now what we want to do is have this joint be oriented to the curve and maybe even follow its position. And this locator should then drive the joint's twist. So I'm going to show you that now. It's just a couple of nodes involved in it. So what normally you would maybe want to do is use a motionPath. But in this case, I'm going to use something else. So first of all, let's get all the important things into this node editor. So we need the curve shape, the locator, and the joint. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So locator shape is our input, curve is our processing object, and joint is our output. So in between these two, we want to have let's use the closest point on curve info nodes. Closest point on there's no nearest point on curve. That's it. Okay. So we put our world position from the shape into the in position of this nearest point on curve. Now we put the world space of the curve into the input curve. And now this node is going to output a couple of things. Result, position, and parameter. So unfortunately this node, as you can see, is a little bit limited in terms of the results. So if we need to get some more stuff here. So what I'm going to do is create another node that's called point on curve info. Alright. We're going to use the world space of this curve into the input curve for this node and the parameter into the parameter attribute of this node. Alright. So now this node outputs a lot more information that we can use much better. We got position, normal, normalized tangent, and curvature stuff. Okay, so what we want to use is the position and the tangent. So the normal is what follows is the vector that follows the curve, and the tangent is that's the tangent. The normal is then at a 90-degree angle to that vector. So we want to have our joint aligned to this curve. That means we have to convert these vectors into proper rotations. Now we can do that using a matrix node. So let's create the 4x4 matrix node. And let's open this up completely. And you can see there's a whole lot of attributes in here. So there's lots of inputs in 0, 0, 1, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'll break these down here. The in 0, 0 to 0, 3. So the first three are are the axes of that axis vector, and the third one, the in 0, 3, is the scaling of that axis. This is to get a shearing effect. This is the main axis. Then the 1 is the secondary axis. Then the 2 is the tertiary axis. So this would be x, y, z. And then the third one is the position. Okay, so what we would do here is, since we want our joint to aim with its main axis x down the tangent, we're going to take the tangent vector. Let's pick the normalized one into the in 0 segment. Alright. Now, you might already see some results here. Let's have a look. Let's decompose this matrix into proper values with the decompose matrix node. Now this node outputs like all the normal stuff that you would be able to use with other transform objects. So use the output rotate into the joint rotation. And you can already see the joint aligned to the curve. So if I move this curve now, you can see how the joint now follows the orientation of one point on the curve, which would basically be the one that this locator is closest to. See? So next one, what we can do is, let's have the joint follow the curve. We don't want it to stay behind. So we're going to use this position output, or let's use this one, since this is the output node. And let's put that into the 3 channel. Alright? And now we put the output of this decomp matrix output translate into the joints translate. And now if we move this locator around, you can see the joint will follow our curve. And it'll be aligned to our curve. So you can have the curve do some crazy bendy stuff. Let's make a little almost full circle like this. And maybe have it go down a bit. Like that. Okay. So now you can see we can move this locator around and the joint will be always aiming with this X down the curve and be at the closest point of from the locator to that curve. Now here's something interesting. When we go to a point around here, you can see the joint flips very quickly. Now this is because if nothing else is plugged into this, it'll use the word vectors. So for y, which is the in 1, it'll use 0, 1, 0, which basically means this little joint wants to aim with this y-axis up in the scene all the time. So basically, if we were to move this curve, you can see at some point the joint flips really quickly. Now we can stabilize this by using a custom up vector. And what would be better than our main control, in this case this locator. So what you can do to do this is you convert one of these axes into a directional vector and plug that into the second input of this 4x4 matrix. To do this, we can use the vector product node. Let's get the locator. Now we need the locator transform to do that. We get the world matrix of that locator, plug it into the matrix of the vector product. Now we need to change some stuff here. We need to set the operation to vector matrix product, which converts the matrix into a vector of the axis that we specify in the first input. So what would be a good axis? For this curve, it's really not going to help us a lot because this bends like in all directions, so there's always going to be a point where the locator flips. But I think it's going to flip the least in Z, so let's use the Z. So let's put Z1, and that's already what we needed. So we take the output of this and feed it into the Y, or the in1 of this matrix. Okay, and now the joint's y-axis will always be pointing at the direction where this locator's z-axis is pointing. So if I rotate this guy, you can see how this joint rotates with it. So now I can move this locator around and the joint will always stay really stable, pointing down at the same direction as this locator does. And you can rotate this locator and have it aim always, and then joint will always aim at the locator position. Now you can do this. You could sample a lot of joints down this curve with like a lot of these systems, maybe not using the nearest point on curve, but instead just creating a parameter attribute here and separate the joints parametrically. So you could, if you did 10 joints, you would have the first one use the parameter 0, then 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3, 0 blah blah blah, and then just feed them into the parameter directly without the nearest point on curve node. Then what you could do is have a second curve that would be our up vector. What is happening? That could be our up vector curve. So you could like position it somehow like that. And now let's say we want, instead of having the joint orient to the locator, we do want him to aim at the second curve. Okay, so let's remove these connections here. Let's get that second curve in. Where is it? Down there. Okay. Now we need another point on curve info node. Again, world space into input curve and the parameter of this first curve into the parameter. Okay, so now this node outputs the same set of attributes. Now we don't want any of these because we can't use, at least none of the tangents and normals and stuff like that. We can't use them because by default the normal will always be pointing at the y-axis of its transform. Now what we can do though is get the vector from the point from this position to that position. It would be basically the vector from the current point of this joint to that current point on this other curve. So it would be this kind of vector here. We can do that using a simple vector math. So we subtract one vector from the other and get the difference, which would basically mean the directional vector between one point and the other. So let's get the plus minus average node to subtract. So it doesn't really matter how you subtract because you either get this direction from here to there or from here to there, which would mean it would inverse the axis. So let's get this position into input 3D. Why doesn't it? Input fucking 3D and input 3D 1. Okay, now we subtract. Okay, and this output we can pipe output into this thing. Okay, and now I can see the y-axis is pointing like opposite from the curve, away from the curve. Basically means I did this the wrong way. So, or not the wrong way, but this is currently not showing what I want. So let's just get it the right way. Okay, now the axis is pointing this direction. So now you can see these axes the joint will always point with its y-axis to the second curve. So if I move this curve, you can see how the joint follows this curve. So I can like move the components and it'll always follow the curve. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to show here. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna quit the video now. You can already see how you can use all of these informations. So until next time, I guess.